Hello, church. It's an honor for me to lead Midweek for you today, and hopefully I'll be able to help provide some spiritual thoughts you and your small group can discuss. Just a small bio, since I'm without the usual hype man that comes up to intro the new guy. My name is Brandon Yee, and I moved here to Austin with my wife Lauren and my dog Jack to help lead the youth and family ministry here. We've been talking about the importance of being connected to the body, to the church. We know that we are with Him when two or more are gathered, as it says in Matthew 18. I don't make the rules, but I'll tell you that even in this time, God has not stopped moving, which inspires me to believe that we cannot stop being in each other's lives. I'm going to take some time to look at the scriptures and share about the deep need that we all have for mentoring and one another discipling in our lives. Now, more than ever, we have a duty to one another as brothers and sisters to be there for each other. Just as much as we care about the general populace by changing our lifestyle and wearing masks, we have to have each other's backs. People react to things differently. I know for me and Lauren, it's been a bit of a mixed bag. Sometimes I'm perfectly content staying home and playing video games and watching movies, and sometimes I'm incredibly sad for the 100,000 people who have died. Lauren is a pretty introverted person, but she's been excited and setting up times to make new friends, but also wants to curl up and hide sometimes. You might be one or the other, or something totally different. But Lauren and I have both seen that we need the church for us to stay connected. We've been blessed by our peer relationships, but also the mentoring relationships we have as well, who have helped us in life. I wanted to take a look at Jesus' mentality for mentoring and discipleship. But honestly, it became a lesson about humility and how we can be powerfully bonded to Jesus by our humility. In Luke chapter 5, verse 1 through 11, it says, "One day, as Jesus was standing by the lake of Gennesaret, the people were crowding around him and listening to the word of God. He saw the water's edge two boats left there by the fishermen who were washing their nets. He got into one of the boats, the one belonging to Simon, and asked him to put out a little from the shore. Then he sat down and taught people from the boat. When he had finished speaking, he said to Simon, 'Put out into deep water and let down the nets for a catch.' Simon answered, 'Master, we've worked hard all night and haven't caught anything. But because you say so, I will let down the nets.' When they had done so, they caught such a large number of fish that their nets began to break. So they signaled their partners in the other boat to come help them, and they came and filled both boats so full that they began to sink. When Simon Peter saw this, he fell at Jesus' knees and said, 'Go away from me, Lord, I am a sinful man.' For he and all his companions were astonished at the catch of fish they had taken, and so were James and John, the sons of Zebedee, Simon's partners. Then Jesus said to Simon, 'Don't be afraid. From now on you will fish for people.' So they pulled up their boats on shore, left everything, and followed him." We see Jesus here getting Simon, who will be known famously as Peter, to recognize him as the Lord. There are interesting things here. Jesus wants to help Peter with something that means something significant to him: catching fish, his source of income. He has a great pulse on what matters, Jesus does, and more importantly, what was easily understandable to Peter. When Jesus reveals his power and the fish are too heavy to bring on board, Peter is astonished by this and knows that he is not talking to a regular man. Jesus is highly intentional about this interaction. He's creating a relationship with Peter that will be famous for at least 2,000 plus years and many more if global warming doesn't get us first. We see Peter being in awe of Jesus, and many of us have been in awe of Jesus before. Peter, like us, was able to see that Jesus had something to offer him and was humbled. Many of us have had experiences like this. Many of us have had a relationship with Jesus or have a relationship with Jesus right now because we've been humbled in some way or another. The tricky thing about being humbled, though, is that it's way easier to be teachable and willing to listen after being humbled. But that time period of feeling humbled is a lot more variable than we like to admit. I know that I can easily start to overestimate myself, start feeling myself a little bit, hyping myself up and not feeling the sting of humility. That same need for Jesus and people in my life to help me out in the hard ways. We see that this thing happens to Peter in an interaction that he has with Jesus later on in Matthew 16, verses 21 to 23. From that time on, Jesus began to explain to his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem and suffer many things at the hands of the elders, the chief priests, and the teachers of the law, and that he must be killed and on the third day be raised to life. Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him. "Never, Lord," he said, "this shall never happen to you." Jesus turned and said to Peter, "Get behind me, Satan. You are a stumbling block to me. You do not have in mind the concerns of God, but merely human concerns." For some context here, Jesus, did get Peter as a follower, and Peter, in fact, chose to be a student of Jesus, following him everywhere he went. I'm talking 24/7, Last Dance documentary, full access. For a total of 3 years, let's say Peter's roughly 2/3 in it, so it's 2 full years. That's about 11,600 hours that he spent with Jesus. Peter has done amazing miracles. He's seen incredible things. He's even participated in the transfiguration of Jesus. And for some reason, he still does not fully understand the concerns of God. We often look at this, make fun of this, see tons of memes and jokes about it on Facebook. But for today, it made me realize that we need to consistently have a spirit of humility in our walk with God. We cannot be so prideful and bold to think that we are completely leveled up, perfect people who don't need anyone else. It can, however, be easy to feel that way. I've been a Christian for 12 years, and my parents have had me going to church since I was born. So that's another 14 years on top of that. 26 years of church, 26 years of reading my Bible, 26 years of being in small groups, 26 years of hearing lessons. For some of you watching, I'm a baby Christian. Others a peer, and others an old man. It's basically just the teens. But I know for a fact that it can be easy for me to start thinking that I got this stuff figured out, that I'm good, that I don't need people in my life the way Jesus calls us to. And so if you've been a Christian longer than me or shorter, we're all the same. We're in the same boat. I can only assume this was a part of what Peter felt as he was rebuking Jesus, that he had gleaned and learned so much that he had to teach Jesus a little knowledge that he had gained. I believe this is one of the reasons Peter messed up. He lost the spirit of humility. He started to get puffed up in his pride little by little, day by day, that he would have the gall to go and pull Jesus aside and rebuke him, which honestly sounds like a line from a Christian parody television show. When I get prideful, I start to ice out the people in my life. I don't get advice about things. I don't call and talk to my brothers about the struggles of my life. I deflect when people ask me how I'm doing and just try and talk about them or sports. For me, and maybe for you and a ton of other people, it's rooted in insecurity, in feeling afraid that people will judge us, hate us, be disappointed in us if they really knew us. But the reality is we are flawed. We are imperfect. It's not a surprise to anyone, so we shouldn't be afraid of what people will think. We are in desperate need of love and encouragement, but also truth. There's an incredible gift in the ability for all of us collectively to be humble at the foot of the cross. No matter how tall, rich, poor, short, old, or young you are, Jesus is the great equalizer. This time of COVID has probably affected people in your household differently, which probably means that everyone has had a good or bad or a mix of both. I just wanted to take some time to share a little bit about even our time here. We just moved here about a month and a half ago. For the most part, people are strangers, just to be honest. We moved after a great interview process. We really believed what the Austin Christian Church is doing, but it really was a step out on faith to just move here, not really knowing people. And I just got to say, it has been an awesome time, and I feel like God has worked even in this time, because Lauren and I have only been married for close to 3 years now, so we're still figuring a lot of things out. But it's been awesome for us to have help from couples like the Hoopers and the Glinskys to just talk about life, but also even about marriage and what it's like to think about kids and what it's like to have, be great at ministry with a family and all these things. And even in our just regular marriage of fighting and, trying to figure out how to compromise with each other. And those things are all real things that, sure, we could have tried to figure out on our own, but I think God intended for us to have people in our lives so that we wouldn't have to go through the hard way for all of these situations. That we have brothers and sisters that can help lead us to spirituality so that we're not constantly fighting over and over again. It's a convicting thought and challenge that we have to be brothers and sisters even more while we are in this strange time. I would not be here I would not be where I am today without people choosing to donate their time to me out of love. I would also not be here today without people saying the hard truths to me as well. It says in Proverbs 27:5, better is an open rebuke than hidden love. We need to have the spirit of humility, not because we're forced by some church leader or some video or some church culture, but because the scriptures and God call us to fall at the foot of the cross and for us to be brothers and sisters in this life. Here are some practicals for you and your small group to discuss. Carve out some time in your week for some real reflection on where you feel you are spiritually, and take some time to talk it through with God on a walk or just in a quiet room in your house, in a closet. The second thing is make sure you have a consistent scheduled time with someone you know is going to be real with you and help you in the spiritual walk. And we all know who those people are, and those are often the people it's hardest for us to call. And number 3 is think of someone who probably needs encouragement and let the Spirit guide you to reaching out to that person. We're in an unprecedented time, but I actually think that Christians are the most prepared for this time because we have an incredible God that connects us, but also a God that motivates us to love other people, whether that's our neighbors or even our own brothers and sisters. Thank you so much for letting me share. I'm incredibly grateful, and I hope you guys will have a great rest of your week. Thank you.